Hello, I'm going to be talking about August Wilson's Fences. He begins the play right before the Civil Rights era. It starts in 1957, and so whereas like the Civil Rights era brings forth all like the details in which Black Americans are being systematically barred from the mainstream economic system. This play takes place right before that, so we're living in like ignorance and allowing this to happen and seeing um, the toll that this takes on two generations of one family. Um, so he starts out by like literally in this section just called the play. He introduces how industrialization specifically contributed to the exploitation of Black people in America, whereas white people were given opportunities to move into the city. To There was like a lot of jobs being created, even though we know that industrialization caused like really bad working conditions for everyone, like everyone in the lower classes. Blacks weren't even given this opportunity. So, um, some of like the differences were in jobs specifically. Black people had more physical labor, and this led to like doing constant physical labor leads to one's excuse me, leads to one's body deteriorating a lot quicker. So um, you can't work as long, and then also Black jobs are not paid nearly as much as like a white office job. There's also they're really unstable. This is all this all appears throughout the protagonist Troy's life. So when he is when he runs away from home, he goes to the city because he believes there'll be more opportunity there, and he finds that not only are there no jobs available for him, there's also no housing, there's nowhere to live. So um, he ends up becoming a vagrant and stealing, which lands him in prison. Um, and what I thought was interesting is that since there's two generations that we see in this play, we see a direct. I'm gonna use like I know it's not the school prison pipeline, but there's a direct path for Black people either to go to the military or land in prison. So Troy, his brother Gabriel, and his son Corey, not Corey, excuse me, Lyons, they all end up in prison for different reasons. So Troy is in prison for stealing. He steals because he doesn't have enough money or housing. Like he doesn't have any stability in his life. So he steals. Um, the other one is Lyons. Lyons also, so he's Troy's son. He also steals and lands in prison. And this ends up like costing them more money. So there's like a cyclical nature to how these failures in the economic system like end up costing these Black families more money in the long run when they're the ones who start out with less money. And So the other one who ends up in prison is Gabriel. Gabriel is the one character who ends up both in the military and in prison. So he doesn't end up in prison, like serving time, as much as he is constantly in and out of jail because he is mentally unstable, because he's injured, he's mentally ill. So the local police see this as an opportunity to make money, and so Troy pays his bail every time that he posts money for him to get out every time. So the other connection was the the Patson military. So Gabriel, who we talked about, he entered the military when World War II was happening, and he was really badly injured in it, and he has a plate in his brain, which caused him to be mentally ill and unstable. And then also Corey goes into the military. Corey goes in the military because, well, okay, to digress a little bit, there's also a difference between, a generational difference between jobs for sustenance versus looking for more fulfilling jobs. So whereas obviously Troy and Gabriel are looking to sustain themselves, which is why they take laborious jobs like a trash collector and being in the military. Both Lyons and Corey look to have more fulfilling jobs. So Lyons wants to be a musician. He doesn't give up his job he doesn't give up his dream, even though he doesn't have a job and is still like leaning on both his wife and his father for money, well through his 30s. He doesn't give this up, which contributes to his like downfall of landing in jail. And then Corey, he wants to, when he's younger, he wants to be a football player. And when we see, and Troy is like really displeased with this because he doesn't see his son working. He has his job at the A&P, and he tells his son he needs to work in order to be able to play, but there's just not enough time, or at least this is what Corey says. So Corey like gives up this dream, and you see him like many years later, and he's in the military. So when he we kind of see the inheritance of these there's an inherited quality to what the boys end up doing. Both Corey and Lyons end up living out parts of their father's lives, or parts of the first generation's lives. Corey, is an ex-athlete like his father, and he ends up in the military like Gabriel. And then Lyons, he doesn't, his drive to be in the music industry is kind of like how Troy wants to do something more fulfilling when he wants to be a baseball player. And then he ends up in prison because he's stealing at his, I believe it's his job. But yeah, all this is inherited, and it feels inescapable and very claustrophobic, which I think was what August Wilson was aiming for in talking about the sins of the father. The book actually opens up with a quote. I believe it's, let me see. So this is a quote by August Wilson. He says, "When the sins of our fathers visit us, we do not have to play host. We can banish them with forgiveness as God in his largeness and laws." However, though he does say, like, you can banish the sins of the father, we don't find that happens in this play. The boys end up living out their father's life, and it seems inescapable and hopeless. So yeah, a lot to think about. I'm struggling with these video responses. They're kind of tough. Alright, thank you.